Hello, everybody. I'm Colette,
I'm Candis.
and this is Hey Cuz, and we're back again with another episode following our mental health journey. Last time you heard about my personal story and mental health and how that's affected my life. Today, you're going to hear from Candice and her journey and her struggles and how mental health and seeking therapy helped her with hers. So, Candice, let's start from the beginning. I want to hear
Very
about.
good place to start.
I want to hear about when you started therapy, but to start off, I really want you to dive in just a little bit of like what your life was like before going to counseling.
Okay. Woo. Before going to counseling, so of course, like Colette, I did grow up in a Caribbean household. I grew up in church. Like building up to therapy. I guess even pre-therapy. I think when it all came crumbling down was when I was in high school, toward the end of high school, going to college. I was just very angry all the time. I just wanted a reason to snap on somebody. I wanted, like, people be like, don't push my buttons. I wanted people to push my buttons because I think I just didn't have a release. Like, and it's weird because like I did have hobbies and I did write, but it wasn't my release. They were just activities like that they should have served that purpose, but they weren't. They were just activities. So I was very angry and also just detached. I would always tell people as a joke, like my whole life, even in college, high school, college, I would, tell them like, I don't have feelings. I don't have feelings. And I kind of didn't, I didn't react to things. I didn't get excited, like no feeling. I didn't cry. I didn't get sad. I didn't get excited. I didn't get happy. Like we could be having fun and I was just like, oh, it's cool. It's cool. Like I was just like, I had no feelings. The one emotion that I did connect with was anger. And I didn't know what I was angry about particularly. After going through therapy, I see, a long list of reasons why. But yeah, I was just mad at the world.
How did that lead to you going to therapy? Like, how did you get into therapy?
My therapy experience started in college as well. I had a professor who I connected with, and I had a motto in life, which was trust no one. But I guess something happened to where I guess I was just reaching a breaking point and I had to talk to somebody. So I felt like, I could trust her. So I little by little, would tell her things, tell her about my family, tell her about my health, and tell her about being stressed. And because in college, I think my biggest thing was I was getting sick a lot. For those of you who don't know, I have sickle cell disease, which is a blood disorder that causes a lot of pain, a lot of, chronic issues, and causes a lot of things, really. So I was just having a hard time. And in nursing school, I was at nursing school at the time. So it was very important to me. So I was just very frustrated that I had all these barriers, preventing me from reaching my goal. It's like having a chronic disease, like you're always trying your best, but there's always a constant enemy that you just can't beat. And so it kind of has to be like, if you can't beat them, join them, that type thing. But I didn't understand that at the time. I was just really frustrated. So I spoke to her, and she, I always say she tricked me into going to therapy. She's like, I didn't trick you. But my personality, like for me, the only surefire way to get me to do something is if you bet me to do it, if you dare me to do it, or something of that nature. So she made me pinky swear that I would go to the counseling center. And for everyone out there, if you're in college, university, chances are there's a counseling center on campus and it is included in your tuition. So it's free of cost for you to go. So I went. And because, like you said, it's a taboo in the Caribbean community, in the church, to go to therapy, something wrong with you, I was ashamed. And the first day I went to that counseling center, because I don't think like yours, it wasn't a health center. That was it was the counseling center. I think that was the only thing that they did in there. So it was kind of like, that was it. It was kind of obvious. So I rolled up in there with my hoodie up. I had sunglasses on. I don't even think it was warm. But I did not want anybody to notice me, to see me going in there. So that was my situation. And luckily, I had a great therapist there. Her specialty actually was students with chronic illnesses. So I just kind of got lucky with that. She had a small group that she held. I didn't go to small group because I wasn't that comfortable yet. But she was able to relate to me very well. And little by little, I opened up to her. We started talking about chronic illness thing, but I was able to open up to her about a lot of other things as well. So that was my first experience with therapy.
All right. So going into therapy, did you have any certain expectations of what was going to happen, what you were going to get out of it, and what were some of the fears or stigmas that were associated with therapy for you at the time that you went?
Like I said, I had pinky swear, and growing up in the 90s, pinky swear is basically a blood oath. So I just had to do it. So that's how I ended up there. Like, I had no expectations. I had no clue what it was going to be like. You see in the movies, they're laying on the couch talking to the therapist and they're writing notes. That's all I knew. I had no clue what it was going to be like. So I was like, let me just see. I said I was going to go. I'm a person of my word. So I was like, I went. So basically my plan was to go and be like, I went. That's that. You said to go. You said to try it out. And I did. Like that's me anyway. Now I realize I'm just a series of check boxes. So I was like, that was a box I ticked. Mission accomplished. But thankfully I had a good therapist, and I could see that she really cared and she understood, especially with her specialty. So it made me interested in going just to see what would happen. Because I'm a curious person by nature. So I was just like, let's just see. It's not gonna, I don't feel like it would hurt. So I kept going. I think I was going for 1.5 years. It was toward the end of my schooling. So, and I combined my last 2 semesters, which was funny because I almost changed my mind just so I could keep going to therapy, because I'm like, I know once I graduate, I won't be able to go. But I went all through the summer. I had summer classes, I had an internship. I worked night shift, and I would drive from work to school, just sleep in my car just to get to my appointment. And the whole time, nobody knew I was going. And so that's where the taboo comes, because even though I was doing it, I was still ashamed that whole time because I didn't tell anyone I was going.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned sickle cell, and I know you're a nurse.
That too.
As a healthcare worker, I know you see probably tons of patients coming in with all types of ailments. And us being in the healthcare field, we see how people can be undergoing stress with some type of life change, emotional, mental, and it can affect their physical. Do you ever feel like you have gotten sick, went into a sickle cell crisis because there were some issues going on in your life that you were not coping well with that affected the physical and got you sick? Or do you feel that when you got sick, it was strictly because of the physical ailment of sickle cell?
Well, absolutely. Mental health is a big part of it. And it's unfortunate because I feel like it's so overlooked. Very rarely do, a lot of people use the ER, I'm an ER nurse, as their source of healthcare. And it's very rarely do we give out mental health resources. And a lot of times that's what people need. I would see a lot of times young people coming in complaining of headache, chronic headache, chest pain, like teens, young 20s, 30s, no medical problems. And I would always ask them, what's going on? And 9.9 times out of 10, there's a stress trigger. So a lot of the times those physical ailments, and, not saying that it can't be physical, but they're what they call psychosomatic symptoms. They're a manifestation of what's going on in your mind. And I always tell people they go hand in hand. So you can be physically ill and it impacts your mental health, or you can be mentally ill and it impacts your physical health, and it's just a circle. So in my case, I'm physically ill. Like, that is something that you could see under a microscope. It can be proven. And so I'm sure that was they say, which is the chicken or the egg. That was the one that came first. I was born this way. And as a kid, it didn't register to me that it was a problem, because I guess I had nothing to lose. But once I got to, to high school, and college was always a major goal for me. Going to college and graduating from college was always a thing for me, because I know that, due to certain circumstances, people with chronic illnesses tend to have difficulty graduating from high school and graduating from college. I've heard this from my doctor. So that was always a major goal of mine. So I know the stress definitely probably gets me sick. I had moments where I had these horrible chest pain, and knowing my body, I knew it wasn't sickle cell. But it could have been, it felt just as severe. It was that strong of a pain. And also, I've told people, I have thought myself into a crisis, because there have been times where things were going well. I'm like, man, I haven't gotten sick in a while. Awesome. And I'm like, oh, I bet I'm about to get sick. And guess what? In the hospital for no reason. And then people like, you thought yourself to, I swear, I have literally thought myself into a crisis. That's how powerful the mind is, because that's all that I ruminated on it. Things can't be going too well. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks that way. It's like you manifest negative things because you think negatively. So I'm like, you get suspicious. It's like that quiet before the storm. Sometimes we cause our own storms.
Wow, that is powerful. Wow. So going to therapy, what were some of the tools that you picked up in therapy that you're like, wow, this changed my life. This changed how I view myself. This is like helping me in your journey. What were some of those things that you picked up?
Gratefully for me, I'm on my second therapist. So I graduated from college, and I didn't go to therapy for a while. And it was just a great series of events to where I did meet my therapist. I met her at a networking event, which was, I was pretty good after college, I think, because I was just distracted by working all the time. But that lasted for about 4 years before I started back on that downward spiral, because you can't avoid your problems. They'll always come back. So that was them coming back at that 4-year mark. And it was just perfect timing, because I know I was about to crash. So I took her card, texted her Saturday, the day after the event, got an appointment for Sunday, and I was in her office on Sunday. So things that we worked on, I feel like it was the first, maybe the second session, she brought out these toys. So it was relating that childhood aspect that you talked about, little Colette. She literally called it Little Candis. So I guess, these therapists know what they're doing, because it's a common theme. But she was, talking about little Candis and how she was just out there on her own. Like, I was the youngest, but at the same time, it was like I was always fighting for myself. I felt like I nobody was really in my corner. Nobody really saw me. So I just been kind of just doing it on my own, figuring it out on my own. And that's why I kind of built up those walls. I said in a few videos, my motto was trust no one. And that's really how I live my life, because of, how I was as a kid. So it's like you can be surrounded by people and still be, lonely or alone. And I was good at faking. I could have gotten an Oscar and the whole EGOT. I should have got all, look, I could have got the whole EGOT for how I lived my life, because people would never know anything was wrong with me. Even physically, like with the sickle cell, I would be in completely pain and faking it. Nobody would know, because I just didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be that sick girl. I didn't want to ruin an event or, something like that. So I always have this thing where I feel like I'm a burden on people because of the sickle cell. And it's like I was always afraid to get sick. And then, of course, that fear, it would make me ruminate on it nonstop, and then I would get sick. Or even if I didn't, make myself sick, I would get sick and I would feel guilty about it. or I would try to, take care of myself at home instead of going to the hospital. So basically putting my life at risk because of unhealthy mental health habits. So thankfully, therapy has made me take all that into consideration. Like you said, the affirmations, you are worthy of love. You're not a burden. Like I had to go, it took a lot of sessions to really understand that. Even still to this day, I don't like asking for help because that's just my thing. I don't want to feel like I'm a burden on people. So that was a really tough thing that I had to work through. And also not being good enough, feeling broken. Like I'll never be good enough, never be strong enough. At one point I had an obsession with like working out. I always, my therapist like, why are you working out? Working out's a great thing, but it wasn't because I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be strong. She's like, why do you want to be strong? And I was like, because I feel like my body doesn't want to be, so I'm going to make it strong. I want to, if I can't be strong, I want to at least look strong. And like I said, that goes back to my EGOT. It was everything's a facade. I look okay, but I was real fragile on the inside. Like you could have just, and everything would have came crumbling down.
So it's sort of like you're trying to get control back over your life. So my body's telling me I need to get control over everything I can physically do.
Yeah. And like you say, like even if it's a joke, like my friends always say I'm controlling, my therapist would always say I'm controlling. And I'm like, let's pick a different word. I don't like that word. I mean, I swear it took me, this is what going into my 4th year with my therapist. I swear it took me 3 years to admit, maybe I do have a control issue. But it's that for that very reason. It's like, I cannot control my body. It's going to do what it wants to do. And what's weird is like, I would get sick and people would always be like, what did you do? What happened? What you did this? What were you doing to where you ended up in a crisis in the hospital? Yeah. And yes, there were times I partied, but not for me. A lot of times it's random. I'll wake up at 3 a.m. in full blown pain for no reason. So it's like, I literally have no control of my body. So it, looking back, I was on a quest to control everything else. And sometimes it wasn't just things, it was people. I need to control everything because your physical health is huge. It's a huge part of your life. Yeah. And for me, it's like, it's nothing I can do. Like, this is something I didn't acquire this. I was born with this. So this is my whole life. And I know that I had no control and I never will. So I really did try to just take the reins on everything I could. And it took me a long time to realize that.
Wow. So you definitely talk about, the control, and people are saying, I have to control everything. So there's also some labels that were put on you. So if you had to give 3 descriptions of yourself that friends or family would have said about you prior to therapy, and 3 descriptive words of how people would describe you now, what would that be?
It's funny. Like the people who know me, they're like, oh, Candis she's just a little cuddle bug. She's just a little teddy bear. She's a softie. But like, it takes a while to get through that, chisel through that wall. But that's really who I am. I'm just like, if you need the shirt off my back, not even if you need it, if you want it, I'm gonna give it to you, But the things that, and I always tell people, don't let people name you. Because that's serious. And people did name me. I tell people to this day, I'm like, there were a lot of people who expected the worst of me. Like people just thought I was a bad person. And that's because like I was hurting and I was quiet. I was withdrawn. So I didn't talk. So people just thought I was obnoxious. I was arrogant. A lot of people, when they first meet me, they don't like me. And I've heard that from people who I'm friends with to this day. They're like, man, I did not like you when we first met. That I've heard that a million. If I had $1 for every time I've heard that, I would be rich. I was talking to one of my coworkers the other day about that. I was like, I know you thought I was mean or something, but I've gotten, you're angry, you're mean, you're controlling, you're aggressive. And I always say, like, thank God I'm not the person that people thought I was. but sometimes I wanted to be. It was like I would lash back. I'm like, I'm gonna turn into the very person that you say I am. Mm-hmm. Like I wrote in my book a poem about anger. Like I said, anger, it's like it fuels me. When people say it takes so much energy to be angry. For me, it's like it gave me energy. Mm-hmm. That's how bad I was. I enjoyed being angry after a point. I loved it. And so it was very toxic. And I'm sure that took a number on my body, me not knowing it. So those are things that people named me for the longest. Going even in church, there are a lot of people who told me people had the worst impression of me. Meanwhile, I'm minding my business and I'm in nurse school. I have time to do anything anyway. But they just think I'm out here in the streets doing God knows what, gallivanting, as the Caribbean people say. And that definitely wasn't me. But when people don't know you and when you're quiet, they fill the silence. Right. They fill the gaps. And 9 times out of 10, the story is not a good one. And for me, it definitely wasn't. People they spoke the worst of me. And at the moment, I was like, I don't care. They don't pay my bills. They don't write my grades. What do I care what they think? But now looking back, I'm like, that was messed up. Because I was a teenager. I was 16 when I started college. I was a kid. But I had grown. I mean, these weren't just kids. These were grown people, adults. Like this one lady from church came up to me and said, do you have a problem with me? I'm like, firstly, I don't know you. Secondly, why do you care? You're a grown woman. I'm a kid. Why would you care anyway? But these are the experiences that I had. Like people just thought the worst of me. And of course, there were people who perpetuated it. But that's another story. So who am I for real? I'm fun loving. And it's funny, like even now I'm looking at myself smiling. My therapist is like, you smile a lot. For someone who claims they're so angry. Like I smile when I talk. I love karaoke. I smile when I sing. It's just natural that it comes out. So I'm a fun-loving person. I have a good sense of humor. I'm intelligent. I'm a good person. I say that all the time. I'm a good person. I was joking with my coworker. I said, I'm going to go on a campaign and my slogan's going to be, Candis is nice. Because I feel like I really have spent years trying to convince people I'm a nice person. Because there are a lot of people who thought otherwise. And really, it's not based off their experience. It's based off what they heard. Because you know me, I've questioned people. I'm like, because people like after, therapy and stuff, and that goes back to like, Candis, you're so aggressive. I'm like, I'm not aggressive. Oh, that's another thing I am. I'm passionate. Mm-hmm. So when people say I'm mean, I ask them, I'm like, what have I done to you that's been mean? And usually they can never give an answer. Wow. Because even in my anger, I tried my best not to take it out on people unless they triggered me. 9 times out of 10, I was just minding my business. I was quiet, recluse. I wasn't taking it out on people unless somebody, poked the bear. So I'm like, why would you think I'm mean? What have I done to you? So most people don't have the confidence that I throw it back because I'm like, I'm not going to let you name me. Right. But that was after the therapy. Anytime somebody would say something negative about me, I threw it right back. I'm like, you explain it. That's not me. I know who I am. Right. I name myself. Like I said, know yourself for yourself. That's not me. So I need you to explain it. I'm a rational person. I'm a logical person. I like discussion. Explain it to me. Make it make sense, as the kids say. Mm. So I'm at a place where it's like, I know who I am. And people call me arrogant. It's not arrogance. I just done the work. Right. I know who I am. I know my name. And I'm not going to let you name me.
Fun fact about Candis, as her say, she doesn't know I'm hijacking this a little bit. But growing up, we went to the same schools. We played at each other's house, almost every day. Like, she's only a year younger than me. We've been like this, okay? She's been
like twins. Our mothers are twins. We became twins, basically.
Growing up, I probably never told this, but I'm gonna tell her here. and I'm gonna try to hold it together because I am a mush ball.
Oh no.
Growing up, like I said, the name calling I talked about in my previous video, and just having different labels thrown on me, she was always my person that always sort of cut that negativity out. Someone called me stupid, she's like, we're gonna stay together, we're gonna get this together, we're gonna get this right. If someone was attacking me, she's like, nah, we're not having that. That's not who she is. Like, she just always had my back. And I always struggled with, woo, hold it in.
Don't do it. But you know what my therapist says? She says, I never keep tissue. She don't keep tissue. Cry.
I don't like that. So I'm gonna hold it in, but I always had self-esteem issues growing up. And she was always like, Colette, like, stop listening to those people. You're not ugly, you're not stupid. We got the same grades, we in the same school. Like, stop listening to what other people think of you. And I just wanted to let you know, like, it always bothered me when you would say, like, people always call me this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, because they don't know you. They don't know you, because I always sought her out for when I needed that pick-me-up, because she always had it. And I remember at my grad school graduation party, everyone, you know, family and friends, they all spoke. And when she spoke, I remember her saying that a lot of people slept on Colette, and they did. But I just remember how it resonated with me, because I can say out of everybody, there's a small amount of people that I can say that believed in me from day one, and Candis was definitely one of those people. And she stuck in the journey with me, even when I didn't believe in myself to finish something. She'll be like, no, you gotta get back up, you gotta get back into it. So that's the type of person she is. That's the Candis I know. If you don't know that person, I can tell right now you don't know Candis. So if you haven't seen that side, you haven't been trying hard enough, because that's the type of person that she is. So I just want to throw that out there. I put it in a little bit. And I'll resume with my next question. Now that I derailed. So since going to therapy, triggers, stuff like that still pop up. So how do you feel you react to when those triggers pop up now versus how you would have reacted before therapy and having those tools?
It's not easy for me. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, after I wrote my book, a lot of people were just like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought. Like, people think I'm perfect. And I hear that a lot. Even they think just my family, like my last name, I'm not gonna say it, but it's like when you hear it, it's like people know who these people are. Yeah. And there's an expectation that comes with that. I say there's like a burden almost that comes with that. It's a heavy weight. And like I said before, I spent my whole life living up to other people's expectations. I found my identity in ticking boxes. So maybe that's why, like, when I graduated, you know, and after, you know, I got my job and I was working for a while, I spiraled because there was nothing else to tick. I had to find myself. So, like, the therapy helped me so much. And also, you know, back to the arrogance thing and the perfection thing, people thought I was perfect because that's how I presented myself. And when I wrote my book, that was my first exercise in vulnerability. Vulnerability is so hard for me because I spent my life hiding my emotions. And that's a point that I want to bring up. And I feel like the Caribbean community and church they're experts at silencing emotion. And I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but I'll talk about it so that you can realize that's what you're doing. So, you know, in the Caribbean community is, you know, our parents say, why are you crying? Let me give you something to cry about. Or were you so upset? You know, you have cooked food and clothes on your back and did all that. But it's like, just because I have provision doesn't mean that there's something lacking. You know, you get the physical. I always mention Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like you're addressing that base layer, and there's plenty more, you know, till you reach the peak. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you forget we're holistic beings. And just because our provisions are being met, we should be perfectly fine. And that's not the case. And I didn't realize that till I was in therapy. It's like, we should be grateful. We come from good families. We lacked. But at the same time, it's like I never lacked like tangible things, but I lacked a lot emotionally, because like I said, I didn't have emotions. I was never allowed to. It's like, why are you so angry about? What you so angry about? Go to your room and so go for a walk. I've been sent on walks before. I remember one time my sister came home. She came home from work and saw me walking in the neighborhood, and she's like honking her horn, thinking, I'm walking. Let me paint this picture for you, because I'm walking down, in the neighborhood, beet red, pouring tears. Because when I get angry, I look crazy. Beet red, pouring tears. And she didn't realize, so she's honking her horn, joking. And then she's like, what's going on? And I was just huffing and puffing. I'm like, the neighbors probably think I'm a lunatic. So it's like, this is what I was given to deal with my emotions. Go for a walk, go to your room, whatever, go to bed. In the church, you trying to, finally think, so you found someone you could trust, pray about it. I barely finished my sentence, and all you have to say is pray about it. You're silencing my emotions. And maybe that's because you don't have the emotional intelligence to help me. But this is some advice to people. If you don't have the emotional intelligence, point them to a resource, because that's just toxic. Because that's just like, is downplaying what's going on or ignoring it, silencing, whatever you want to call it, is not okay. And that's what happened to me. Pray about it. There's a Donnie McClurkin song. He says, I prayed and cried, I prayed and cried, I prayed and cried. Maybe I did pray about it. And I'm still here. I showed up, this hurt me to my core. And that's why, I have a lot of problems that I'm still working through in therapy. I showed up to church every Sunday and Wednesday and days in between. Everyone knows who I am. They knew who I was. I sat in the same seat, and nobody recognized that there was something wrong with me, that I was hurting. And those were some of the hardest and toughest years of my life, and nobody noticed. So like you said, I guess I didn't realize I've always been doing this since I was a kid, rooting for people and trying to lift them up, even though I was completely shattered inside. Maybe it's because I didn't want people to feel like me. I don't want people to feel the pain. I guess I'm used to, and that's another thing I worked on therapy. I'm used to feeling pain. So I feel like I should take it. I'm going to take all the pain and make sure you don't have to experience what it is that I'm going through. Mm-hmm. So I had to come to realization, I'm not a superhero. I'm human. And I have to remind that to people, because people expect, like I said, I live my life of expectation. So then therefore people expect everything of me. So now I'm having to say, no, I am not a superhero. I am human. And sometimes I have to look in the mirror and say, you're not a superhero. You are human. These are simple things that I have to work through in therapy, because I spent my life trying to make myself superhuman because of this one physical flaw. And it's like, it's one thing. Mm-hmm. But subconsciously, I focused my whole life around it. And it backfired on me. So eventually I took on everything. And I would take whatever assignments they have at school, assignments they have at work. Give it to Candis. Your friends are hurting, your family's hurting, family issues, they're mad. And I would just take it. But eventually you could only hold so much. Mm-hmm. So I had to learn, don't take what's not yours. Mm-hmm. It's a very hard thing for me, because I'm pleading to my therapist, but I'm like, but I don't want them to hurt. I don't want them to make a mistake. And she's like, mind your business. But no, for real. That's something that we really had to work on. And she's like, well, that's also part of your controlling thing. It's like, you care, but at the same time, it's like, you want to control everything, even other people's hurt. That's not yours to take. And this is not a paid sponsorship, but this is a shirt based on my therapist's book. And it's not me just being controversial. It stands for shame, hurt, insecurities, and trials. And isn't that what most mental health issues are rooted in anyway? So you got to deal with those things. because they're never going to disappear. I'm dealing with stuff from since I was a little girl. She looked at this is what happened in therapy. She's told me to bring a picture of me as a kid. I showed her my kindergarten graduation picture, and I barely cracked a smile. I've been serious my whole life. You look through my baby album, you've seen it. How many pictures are me smiling?
Not much.
Unless I was coerced, like, as I got older, but even as a baby, it's like I knew what was coming. I was always serious. And she looked at the picture. She was like, I can see already. And I was in kindergarten at 4? She's like, I can see in your eyes. It's like, you are fighting already. Like, you are so serious. You are on a mission as a 4-year-old. So it's like, I've been just going through the mud my whole life. Had to take a step back, even with the name calling, as you say, because I started to believe it. That's the dangerous thing. Words are powerful. And I really started to believe those things. And that's why people, they say I'm arrogant. I'm not arrogant. I just literally had to sit down and take an evaluation of all the things that people have told me, because I did believe them. And I had to decide, like, am I a bad person? Am I aggressive? Am I just up to no good? And of course, thankfully, I see the things that other people see, the people who know me, like you say. Thankfully, I finally did start to see it.
So, you dropped a lot of gems, a lot of important gems that you learned from therapy. To wrap up, what would you tell the person that is skeptical of going to therapy? What would be their takeaway that you would want them to know? They're not sure about it. What would you tell that person?
To tell them about therapy. Well, I'll tell you what I told myself in the beginning. It's not going to hurt. But to go a little deeper, it does work. And you know what is funny is, like, for the longest, like when I was in college, I didn't tell anybody I was going to therapy. When I met my new therapist, I didn't tell anybody I was going to therapy. She was working on weekends at the beginning. I was leaving in the middle of church service to go to therapy, and I never told anyone. So it was like, even though I was skeptical, I could see that there was something. It's like I knew it was important somehow. So I did anything it took, ridiculous however it was, to get there. And it's not that I'm just being contrary or questioning everything just for the sake of it. It's because it's necessary, because it's not fun by any means. It's like, I'm not doing this because it's fun. I'm doing it because it's necessary and because it works. So just give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, you heard it here from Candis and her journey with mental health. So thank you guys for sticking around. I hope you took a lot away from this, and we can't wait to see you again. Because
peace and love. Bye, everyone.